Hello, welcome to yet another episode of the African Five-A-Side podcast brought to you by africasaCountry.com. My name is Maher Mizahi. I am the host, and today I am very, very happy to be joined by one of my favorite journalists on the African continent, Velile Mnyandu. I hope I pronounced your last name right. I realized I never actually said your last name.
Perfectly so. Perfectly
Ah,
so, man.
amazing. How are you
Yeah,
doing, man?
yeah. I know I'm good. I'm good, man. Just a week to the Afcon now.
Yeah.
So thanks for this opportunity. I've been watching the other a podcast that you've been having with the guys previewing their countries, and that excitement of
Yeah.
being at the Afcon. And you would know because I was not the same at the last Afcon in Cameroon as compared to 2019.
You weren't
Because
wearing
I
that
was just
jersey. You weren't wearing that. You
Hey,
weren't
hey,
wearing that
hey, hey.
jersey.
So I can't wait. I can't wait
So
to
you're
be in this.
Thank you for being here. You're from South Africa, so let's talk about South Africa. Bafana Bafana, yeah. Back at the Afcon, um, everybody when they talk about Bafana, they talk about the spine of Sundowns players. And Sundowns, we know, has been a top four club on the African continent, the current African Football League champions, playing beautiful football under Rulani Mokwena. Um, First question is, does this kind of, silky football, does it translate to the South African national team?
I think if you look back, maybe when Coach Hugo Broos started, it was not really like this. He would have, yes, maybe Sundowns players still dominating, but not like they're dominating now. And also even maybe in terms of play, it has been slightly different. But now I think you are seeing a real dominance of Sundowns in this team, not only in the overall squad, because now they are even counting for more than half of the squad. Also when you even consider maybe even some of the other former Sundowns players in the form of Pesitao as well, players who come from that kind of a philosophy, and also we must say that the Sundowns identity. In terms of their style of play, it is the original South African style of play in any case. But now we've seen this transforming also to the starting lineup. I think the last two matches, if not the last three matches Bafana Bafana have played, there's no less than 6 Sundowns players in the starting lineup. And I think if you look at their success on the continent in terms of now this year, in fact, in this season, I think Sundowns together with Al Ahly and also Wydad Casablanca, ninth straight appearance in the group stages of the African Champions League. And you also translate and also look at the fact that Sundowns are the inaugural champions of the African Football League. And if you look at how they not just won that tournament, but also dominated, even winning some of their matches away. So you get to see why this Sundowns team is well represented in the starting lineup.
But does the football they play, that team chemistry, they play the most beautiful football on the continent at the club level. Do we see some leakage into the national team? Do they keep that chemistry? Do they continue to, players like, Mudau, Modiba, there's so many players, Tembozwane, Mokoena, these players are all, spines of the South African national team now. Do they retain some of that beautiful football that they play at the club level?
What I like with Bafana Bafana and this AFCON is that we're going back to the country where we were in October, and we played an initial friendly match. And I remember I was there with Lorenz at halftime. By halftime, some journalists in Cote d'Ivoire at the Felix Houphouët-Boigny Stadium, they came to us and they were like, "Wow, you guys are like this." And not only did Bafana score early in that game or score the first goal, but they silenced the crowd. And the beautiful football, especially with Tembazwane, we call him Shishi here at home, being the conductor. Also there, and also just behind him was also Tebogo Mokoena, also his teammate at Sundowns, who's also one of the engine of our midfield in this team. Mudau, I think that was one game where if Zaha is not in that squad, when you see Zaha not in that squad of Cote d'Ivoire, the person who must be held responsible for that, it should be Mudau, because Mudau not
Oh,
only
big words.
part of the game, Not only did he mark him out of the game, but he was also using that channel on the right to attack. So I think also the experience of Coach Hugo Bruce, it was gotten into a stage where, in as much as he had his own way, but also he's also realized that this Sundowns team and their key players, they are a key factor. And I think also credit must go to the technical team at Sundowns, because there was a time where Sundowns, you would see maybe more dominance of also the foreign-based players. But over the past few seasons, we've seen a Sundowns starting lineup that is usually dominated by locally based players. And we see some players coming from other clubs, so-called smaller clubs. And once they get to Sundowns, and it's something that has also been there even during Coach Pitso's time, and when they transform these boys into well-established international players. And I think under Coach Rulani Mukwena, we've seen that continuing. When you talk about Sundowns players, they will tell you, even in camp, even some of the boys who are based overseas, they always look forward to be around them, because these players, they can analyze their own play, they analyze the opponents, they analyze their teammates, so the modern trends of football at Sundowns is also what is contributing in them having these well-established international players.
Okay, Veli. For those that don't know, South Africa had a very long unbeaten streak that unfortunately was ended against Rwanda, but that was, I think, a little bit of a weird game, right? The travel conditions were weird, the pitch conditions were not great. So let's throw that game out. So we have a South African side that's playing great football now, with experienced coaches who won the Afcon before. The major glaring question that I have now, the weakness is who's going to play striker? There's no Lyle Foster. There's no Lebo Mutiba. Who's going to be the number 9? Who's going to be scoring the goals for South Africa?
Hey, you see, that is the biggest challenge that we're also having now, especially when we talk about the strikers that we have in the team. Lebo Mutiba, I felt that when we were in Cote d'Ivoire, in Abidjan, and even Coach Hugo Broos, he did say that he brought this different dimension of play in the team, big striker, holding the ball, also using his physique. And that is the type of a key player that you need at the Afcon, a player who can play with his back to the goal very well, and also giving that second ball to his teammates. So this is one of the biggest challenges that we're having now. The issue of Lyle Foster as well is another difficult issue for us, because he's on form. He was our top scorer even in the qualifiers. So, now there's this situation that we can't be having him, and taking nothing away from the other strikers who are available for this tournament. I don't think that they can give us what those two strikers. Remember, Lebo Mutiba, this was going to be his second Afcon. He was there in Cairo in 2019. So I think if maybe I'm talking about an area that I'm not really sure about coming to this tournament, due to the challenges that we're having with injuries and the situation of Lyle Foster, it is that striking force. But look, when you look at a boy like Evidence Makgopa, I know that the coach likes him a lot, and I think one of the reasons that he likes him a lot is also because he was in his very first selection when he got here in 2021. In June 2021, we played against Uganda in an international friendly match, and Makgopa was there. And I think immediately after that, or just before that, he was also coming off from the Olympics. He had been to the Olympics, scored a great goal against France, at the Olympics. So the beauty about this team that we have is that it's a combination of boys who've been to some of them under 17 World Cup, under 20 World Cup. Some have been to the Olympics, some in the 2016 Olympics, and also the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. But I expect someone like Evidence Makgopa or even Zakaleli Pasa to lead our attack, obviously with Pesitao as well as Themba Zwane.
Hold on, we're going to do the lineup. We're going to do the lineup in a little bit. Before we get there, Hugo Bruce. What are we supposed to make of Hugo Bruce? He won the AFCON in 2017 with Cameroon. He's bounced around. He's coached at clubs all over Africa. When the appointment was made, especially because South Africa is a country that's produced, coaches like Pitso, it's produced coaches like what's his name? Rolani Mokoena, of course. Even I was thinking like maybe Benny McCarthy. You know, he was having some good results with Amazulu, and then they bring in Hugo Bruce, and I was like, okay, wait and see. How's that experiment going so far, and how would you describe his coaching style?
You know, with Coach Hugo, um, firstly, let's talk about the appointment. When the appointment was made, there had been a strong feeling that maybe we'll need to go local. And Benny McCarthy was a name that was mentioned. In fact, he came very close for that appointment as well. I think the people who were looking for the coach also reached out to Coach Pizzo as well. Even though at first it looked like maybe there could be a chance to get him, but I don't think it was easy to price him away from his contract at Al Ahly. And I also don't think that he was really keen to come back early to coach Bafana again. So we ended up with Coach Hugo Broos. I think it was also not the first time that he was in the shortlist, because even previously, I think he had been in the shortlist together with Javier Renat as well. But this time around, I think the technical committee was also impressed with him. But I also think it's got to do with the fact that other targets that they were looking for, be it Coach Pito or even with Coach Benny, I'm not sure if they really got into the nitty-gritty of negotiating the contracts in that space. And the fact that he's got the experience of having worked on the continent. And remember, we had not qualified for the previous Afcon, so they needed a coach who has been at the Afcon with a good knowledge of African football. And remember, we had not also qualified for the World Cup because it's been more than 20 years now, when you really look at it, more than 20 years since we're at the World Cup through qualification, not the 2010. And Coach Hugo Bruce always says the last World Cup in 2010, it was a present to us,
We both had hair back then.
Eh?
I said we both had hair back then.
Definitely. So when you look at where we come from and where we are now, I would say he's really transformed the national team, to be honest. At first, he came with this approach of just going only with the youngsters, trying to build the team. And I remember we ended in a very good position, actually, if you consider that he was on the rebuilding mode and all the challenges. Because Ghana, for them to go to that playoff match against Nigeria, they only beat us through that disputable penalty and in the Cape Coast. And also, besides that penalty as well, Ghana only won the group through a goal difference in those World Cup qualifiers for 2022 in Qatar. But after that, he realized that there was a little bit of lacking in quality in the team. And that's when he went back on his word that players like Themba Zwane, Mshishi, and some of them were old. And then he went back. And when he brought back Themba Zwane, the man is now waxing lyrical about Themba Zwane to such an extent that he says Themba Zwane is the best player he's coached in Africa. And Themba Zwane, you've watched Sundowns a lot. He influences the style of play, not only at Sundowns, but here, even at Bafana. I will tell you, the people at Felix Wilfred-Bonyi Stadium, they saw it that night, playing against well-established midfielders, playing in the top leagues in Europe. Kessie, who's also playing in the Saudi Pro as well. But on that night, they were playing second fiddle, and I expect that to happen also in Korogo.
So good behind the strikers, filling in those spaces, running in behind. He can do everything almost, and very experienced player as well. Okay, so now we have the coach's philosophy. We understand that he's doing a good job. He has confidence in South African public. I think is usually skeptical and pessimistic of the national team, but it seems like he's built a little bit of confidence. Let's get through the starting 11 then. What's this going to look like? I think obviously you're going to have Ronan Williams in goal, yeah, from Sundowns. Great goalkeeper with his feet as well. Who's in front of him in defense? What kind of formation is it? And who's in midfield and who's in attack?
Yeah, so I think it's also important for sometimes who really don't understand South African football. You will find that they don't really understand why maybe the fans come across as being tough or harsh on our players. But you know, South African football, it's education that most people don't get to know. You know, South African football it comes from an era where, due to apartheid, we were excluded from international sport. And were only readmitted in 1991 and played our first game in 1994. So before then, it was club football that was dominant in this country. And it's now 31 years since we're back, or 32 years, we're finishing 32 years since we're back now at this level. Part of that, it has not really moved away. And now the starting lineup, or even the squad, is dominated by Sundowns. And Sundowns is not the most popular team, by the way. You know, because there's Kaizer Chiefs and there's Orlando Pirates. Chiefs doesn't even have a single player in the squad. And for the first time in the 11 appearances, or even the 10 previous appearances we've had at the Afcon, that we're bringing a squad that doesn't even have a single Kaizer Chiefs player. You know, so it tells you of what is happening. So you find that there is that trend of, when the squad comes out, the fans look, are our players in this team? You know, because Bafana Bafana is always dominated by locally based players. You know, so there's that kind of globalism that also takes.
It's very, very interesting, because even in Egypt in 2019, I remember a lot of Ahli and Zamalek fans would prioritize their club players over the national team. And I think we have a similar dynamic, what you're saying, in South Africa as well.
Yeah. But now I want to come back. So I just wanted, because sometimes for people outside, they don't understand why there would be this, you know. So now, just to come to the starting lineup, and I know there's been a lot of issues, even about this squad that has been selected. People feeling that there are a number of players, or quite a few players who have been left out. But when you really look at it, I want us to go back, before I come to the starting lineup. I want us to go back to the last Bafana Bafana team, right? That was selected against in the World Cup qualifiers. And at that time, the coach had said that he already has got 75 to 80% of the team. Ronwen Williams was in that team. Velile was there. So was Ricardo Agos as well. And those are the three goalkeepers that were also taking into this tournament. And you look at the defenders. We had Sydney Mobi. We had Bradley Cross. Okay, Bradley Cross has since been replaced now by Terence Mashiko. And Terence Mashiko, by the way, in the early selections of Hugo Broos, he was one of the standout left backs when he selected him. But he moved from Cape Town to Sundowns, and then there's been struggling for game time in Sundowns, and now he feels that he needs him, because Hugo Bruce is this type of a coach, Mayal, who prefers, especially in a tough group like we've got stronger opponents like Mali and Tunisia, for instance, he prefers what I prefer to call is as a hardened left back, a left full back, you know, not a left wing back, you know. So I think the characteristics of Mashiko, that's what he brings. And then there's Grant Kekana, there's Nkosinathi Sibisi, Aubrey Modiba, Sianda Kulu, Mtobi Mvala, and Kuliso Mutau. And these are all the players who were in those World Cup qualifiers. And Tebo Mukona is also in that team as well. Jaden Adams, Spepelos Tole. There was also Subung title from Chiefs, but now that spot has been taken by Tabang Munare from Orlando Pirates. And when it comes to the strikers, there's Themba Zwane, there's Zakalele Pasa. Okay, Lebu Motiba was there. He's not there now. Pesitau, Osun Apolis, Mihlali Mayambela, Tapelo Maseko, and Bongo Kushle Hlongwane. So just Hlongwane in that attack, and Motiba. And Tapelo Morena is back. And Tapelo Morena, is this utility player. They call him the Kairos layer here at home because whenever he goes up north, he scores, especially there. So I just wanted to give you this, because if you look in this squad that I've just shared with you now, maybe there are 2 or only 3 players who are not in this team now. Some of them owing to injuries and also some slight selections. But this is the continuity that Hugo Bruce came with. How I'm looking at the starting lineup, and also remember, sometimes his starting lineup, it varies according to who we're playing. Because against Mali, we have one of the best midfield that we're going to face in this, and one of the best midfield in the tournament as well. But also, aerially, it's a team that is going to give us a lot of problems. So set plays, we have to be very alert in that space. But they must also be ready to move, because our boys can move with the ball. And sometimes we always say we like playing against West Africans because it's difficult for them to catch up with our fast-paced game, with good intelligent play and also skillful football as well. So I expect the captain, Ronwen Williams, to be there. I also expect a defense of Khuliso Mudau at right back. Mtobi Mvala, I expect Mtobi Mvala to also be there. Nkosinathi Sibisi, I would expect him to be there. I know that the coach likes Ulu a lot, maybe also for his experience, but Ulu has not been really that much active at SuperSport, and also at left back. And this is now going to depend in terms of what is the coach looking for. Is he looking for an offensive left wing back, or is he looking for a strong defensive left fullback? So I think I would go with Modiba, but you'll also need a lot of support from the midfield, because he's channel, because he also at Sundowns.
He can play in midfield. He can play as a left winger.
He play in midfield, and also at Sundowns he inverts a lot. Because Coach Rulani is one football crazy coach. At Sundowns, they will also tell you that they don't play a football system; they play schemes.
Positionless football.
Positionless football. They even call their style of play this season chameleon football. So if you're watching, I think there was a game against Pyramids. The commentator, I heard the commentator lost in that game. Said, I don't know. I see 2-2-2. That's like, yeah. And in the midfield, I think this midfield has not faltered so far. Midfield of Spepelos Tole. Let me tell you about Spepelos Tole. He's a product of the KZN Academy. Left the country at a very young age. I think it was around 17, 18, and he went to play in Portugal. And I think he was snapped up by Sporting Lisbon juniors. So he's been playing there. But now I think he's playing in the second tier of a Portuguese league. And he's been doing very well. And also another member of the Under-17 World Cup in 2015 in Chile. Interestingly, that is the Under-17 World Cup that made the likes of Samuel Chikwueze as well as Victor Osimhen. But we had beaten them, by the way, in the semi-final, in the Afcon prior to that World Cup. Tebogo Mokoena, I think the best midfielder based in Africa today, and I think he'll be showing his quality. And lining up in front of them, because these two, they just play in front of the back four. It will be Pesitao. I expect Themba Zwane to just play just behind the striker there. And then there is one position now where it will be interesting in terms of how the coach is lining up there. And for me, if we're talking about pace, because pace is going to be the order of the game here, I will not be surprised if he even throws in Tapelo Morena. in that space. But time will tell in terms of maybe how the coach sees it. But I think we've got a lot of good options in our attack.
Sorry, I was on mute while I was checking the. So explain to me the midfield again. It's gonna be Sithole Mokoena,
Yes.
and then you want to have. Is it a diamond midfield?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so then Zwane and Percy,
Yeah, Zwane and Percy,
and
and then they will have either Tapelo Morena
yeah,
on the left, or he could even go with Mayambela,
okay,
Mihlale Mayambela. Yeah, and Mihlale Mayambela is the man who took us to this Afcon. He scored the winning goal away in Liberia.
yes,
He plays in
yes, yes.
Cyprus, and he's also been one of the trusted players in coach Hugo Broos's team. So I expect him to play alongside, and he's done very well playing alongside Mshishi, that is Themba Zwane, and also Percy Tau. If he doesn't go with Evidence Mahupa at the top, I expect him to go with Lipasa, because Lipasa was also one of the players. He's not been really. He's got 10 goals in the first 2 months of the season, but it's been dry since then. But once it comes to the national team under the watchful eye of Coach Hugo Broos, he becomes a different player.
Okay, so we have little less than 10 minutes to go. So let's quickly talk about who's the star player. I'm assuming it's going to be Percy Tau, but who's the most established star-studded player from South Africa, and how do you feel about them in this tournament?
I think another good thing under Coach Hugo Broos is that in as much as we'll talk about Mshishi, we'll talk about Tebogo Mokoena, we'll talk about Percy Tau, and also the brilliance of Ronwen Williams in keeping us in the game with his big saves as well. Coach Hugo Broos is a disciplinarian. You know him from how he won his maiden Afcon with Cameroon. He instilled a lot of discipline in that team, and that also translates in how he wants to play. And we are also not a team that scores a lot of goals. I think I must also say that, but also it is also very difficult to score against us, and that's why I think we went I think it was 13 games unbeaten in almost 2 years. So when you look at that, it all contributes in terms of it's difficult to identify who, but I think having a Percy Tau who's not only at form at Al Ahly, but is also shown even at a big stage like the Club World Cup, the quality player that he is, even with the challenges that I'm talking about up front. Because also the good thing is that our goals have not been coming from one angle. You have different players in the team, especially even in the midfield, contributing with the goals, and we create a lot of chances because the brand of football that we're playing makes it easy for us to create a lot of chances. But if you're going to notice one thing with the team that has been selected here, it's a team that is full of pace as well.
Okay. And who's a young player or an unknown player that we don't really know on the continent or in the international world that you think could surprise people and could make a name for themselves in this tournament?
Yeah, no, because there are some younger players in this team who have been selected. Someone like Oswin Apolis. So Oswin Apolis is a product of the then Ajax Cape Town, that is known now as Cape Town Spurs, and then later moved to SuperSport United, but never really got a chance to play the highest level there. And he was playing in the second tier last season for a team called the Pretoria Kellys, because he had been out of the game for some time, and then coach who really believed in him, Cornelo Kopo, called him back to come back in the game. And now when Polokwane City was promoted from the National First Division to the Premier Division in the PSL, they went back to their opponents in the NFD to take him. So it's also a player. It's unfortunate that he played for an under-20 team, because we have under-20 teams that have been very successful in terms of going all the way to play in the Club World Cup. In fact, in the under-20 World Cup. But he played in an under-20 team that didn't really get the chance to qualify. But the good thing is that he was coached by the current assistant coach in Helman Mkelele, a member of the Afcon 96 winning squad in that team. So is a very good player, trust me. But it's just that, sometimes here at home, when you play for a so-called smaller club, no one really takes notice of you. But I think that international experience that he's got also help in the space. And also he's been part of our under-23 team that has also, in a way, failed to qualify for the Afcon under-23, which was also to qualify for this 2024 Paris Olympics. So remember the name, Oswin Apolis. He's also been scoring goals. He's not just good in dribbling only, and he doesn't only lay the assist only, he also scores goals. So I think he's the youngest player in this team. There's also another one, Jaden Adams. He comes from Stellenbosch. Stellenbosch is the team of the moment in the PSL. I think they've won 10 of their last 11 matches. And they recently won their maiden silver in top flight football, and they beat Orlando Pirates from 2-0 down. They won 3-2 last week against Orlando Pirates, and is a key midfielder there at Stellenbosch, Jaden Adams. So those are some of the players to expect, especially the younger players in this tournament for us.
Okay, Veli, prediction time. Put you under the hammer now. South Africa finally back at the Afcon after 2 or 4, let's say 4 very long years. In a tough group, like you say, you don't score a lot of goals, but you don't concede a lot of goals. I think that's probably true for Tunisia and Mali as well. Mali is out, they're missing their strikers. Tunisia don't have great strikers. The best strikers actually probably play for Namibia.
Yes. And that is going to be a problematic game for us. And I've heard a lot of people saying, no, we'll get our 3 points from Namibia. That Namibian team has got about
they know South Africa,
players who play here. And Shalulile has got 10 of his teammates playing here. He also knows. And also, fortunately, Namibia also plays their matches here in South Africa. I've watched their games. And even their game where they qualified against Cameroon, I was there at the stadium. They played disciplined, low block approach, and with a good transitional play. They've got a very strong counter. And there's a young boy in that team called Bethwell Museu. He's the leading goal scorer in our national first division, the second tier, with 10 goals. So it's not just Shalulile, but also you'll see him. He just plays like Shalulile. Even the
shirts,
yeah, and he says it that he's been inspired by Shalulile.
Wow.
So I'm very wary of that game on the 21st of January. So we must be at our best in that. So look, when it comes to the prediction,
we have 2 minutes. So what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen with South Africa?
What I know is that we're going to the second round.
100% confident. You'll put your house on it.
We're going to the second round. And remember, you were there. You remember, we didn't need to win 2 matches or what to get to the second round in 2019. We just beat Namibia when we were there in the second round. And in the next game, because everyone thought the favorites were the hosts, and we left people crying at Cairo International Stadium.
That was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in my life. Cairo International Stadium, which is very loud and so many people, and you could hear a pin drop after South Africa scored. Woo! I just heard Njabulo was next to me. He was screaming. That was the only thing I heard in the whole press box.
And I know what's going to happen, man. We're playing in Korogo, north of Cote d'Ivoire.
Yeah.
With Mali just maybe a few kilometers away from their home base as well. So they'll be having a lot of support. But we will play football to silence the crowd. We'll play football to silence the crowd. But I can't say how many points we're going to get. But what I know is that we're going to the second round.
Okay. 1 minute left. Can South Africa make it to a semi-final? I know they can make it to a quarterfinal. Can they make it to a semi-final without these strikers?
That's going to be very difficult, That's going to be very difficult.
But you think a quarterfinal is okay? You can build on that result.
I think I don't doubt the team, because I think in knockout football, once you are past the group stages, anything is possible. We've seen even the strongest teams. Look at Morocco in the last 2 Afcons, so anything is possible once you get to the knockout phase. And I think one of the biggest challenges for our team is that in 2019, Bafana Bafana knocked out the hosts and they went all the way to the quarterfinals. So for this team to be better, they need to match or better the last performance in Cairo.
Velile, I could have talked to you probably for 2, 3 hours. That was very fascinating. Thank you for even like the sociological insights about why, people are very much club over country in South Africa. I'll be plugging Velile's socials in the YouTube description below. Please go follow him. Again, one of my favorite people in African football journalism. Otherwise, keep it locked here as we continue our coverage of the Afcon and try to preview all 24 teams at the 2023 Afcon. Thanks for listening and peace.